Welcome back to another episode of the Maturity Project. I am your host, tongue-twisted Chad. Your host, Chad Ever Broshears, or Sir Chad Ever Broshears. If you know, you do. Anyway, today's conversation is about building up your own constitution. Putting effort into your resolve. Who are you and what are you going to do? Again, the 8 areas of maturity is to help you become more developed, more mature. Doesn't mean you lose the joy and fun and playfulness of life. That is such a misconception, because people believe that when you get mature, you get old, and you lose your childishness. That is the fun part of life. Well, you do in fact lose the childishness, but you don't lose the fun part. Like, I have a hell of a lot of fun, and I play. Woo. A lot of fun little antics and things, that I like to get into with people, and just to express, how much I enjoy being around them and generating joy based off my behavior and those kind of fun things. So let's not lose sight of the benefit of maturing because we get caught up in the idea that we'll lose the luster and joy in life, because that is not the case. You get to enjoy it more than you would if you were childish. Simple example of that is that when you're being playful and childlike and mature, you may be having fun, but it's so much easier for somebody to redirect your emotional state by reminding you of an insecurity or pushing something that just reminds you of something that's off-putting to you and undesirable. Pretty much triggers an insecurity, right? Well, that happens, and it happens often. Like, I was having a great time until this happened. It's a mark of maturity to have something that upsets you or could upset you, but doesn't. So it's not that upsets you, but doesn't. No, that's not the case. That's idiotic. But scratch that from the record, please. But to have something that could upset you and it doesn't bother you, that is maturing. Seeing past any of your own shortcomings that would cause you emotionally to get sticky, where you're just like, you get stuck in being upset about the fact you have a shortcoming, especially if somebody's exploiting it or pointing it out so that they can potentially exploit it. It's a big deal, right? Because it makes you more functional to the environment. Somebody's triggered you and you're able to stay stoically connected or consistently solid with your constitution about who you are. So developing that. So first off, there's basically 3 steps to this that can fortify your constitution. Improve upon your ability to stay consistent in life. And the first one is be aware of where you are currently. It's always good to take stock of where the hell are you, so that you can start looking at things. So first off, know who you are. You do a checklist of basically it's like, who do you know yourself to be? What can you rely about? What can you rely on yourself for, specifically for you? You know your shortcomings in this world. Whenever you tell somebody something and that you are going to do something and you don't quite come through, if you shift your perspective to be the witness of that, if you shift that so you can say, I pay attention to whenever I don't do what I tell people I'm going to do. That's a beautiful, beautiful place to be, because it's so honest. Then it puts things on the compass, right? It puts things on the radar for you to start looking at. What's on the radar? Well, you can simply say that I recognize whenever I tell somebody I'm going to do something and then they try to hold me accountable for it when I don't do it, and it makes me feel challenged. Boom, on the radar. You can do something with that now, because you have the awareness of something you can address. You also know whenever you have something that you tell somebody you're going to do and you do it and you feel incredibly good about it. You feel excited, rewarded beyond just the action of completion of whatever that thing was you said you would do. But you also get the, yeah, I overcame something. That goes on the radar too. You want to strengthen that. You want to strengthen the skill sets that got you to the point of completing that particular objective that you've shared with somebody. All of this stuff comes down to your skill sets. What are you developing to be successful? It's not the event that challenges you. It's the skill sets that got you there. The event just tells you, boom, something's on the radar. The skill set assessment is what gives you your tools to develop yourself and be that much better in the future, that much more capable of overcoming those challenges, working your way through those challenges. And to be very clear, when I say overcoming, I do not in any way mean avoiding at all. Avoidance is like a first tier level conflict method that is incredibly unsuccessful. Makes you feel good at the moment, but life's a boomerang, baby. And if you don't know how to catch that thing, it's going to knock the hell out of you. That's life. It's a boomerang. And those skills that are necessary for you to be successful at what you're working on, that's the weight in the boomerang. So if you are not developing those skills, you're not getting better at catching and handling. So if you neglect the skills necessary, that adds the weight to the boomerang, and that thing's gonna clop you, and it's gonna hit you pretty hard. Now you will realize that you did not get better at it, so don't avoid. All right. So building your constitution, recognizing where you have, first is awareness, what's on the radar for you, so you can put some effort into developing that. And then there is, so now that you know what's on the radar, it's a good practice, man. I mean, I used to do this with my buddy Johnny. It's one of my best friends. And it was at the end of the day when I was a brand new director in a box chain, so a chain of gyms, box gyms, fitness centers. And I had a company I had prior to that was I ran my own holistic personal training company. And it was eating humble pie to step back and become a director, which was started off as an assistant director, than to be like, hey, I'm the owner of a company, I should be at a higher level than assistant director. It's like, you're assistant management. But I had to eat some humble pie. And at the end of every day, I was obsessed to develop. At the end of every single day, I was on the phone with people that were my peers or that were senior to me, any potentially higher levels in management than I was, regularly putting in the effort to develop myself there. I'd go home and sit down and take out a notepad and I'd draw on it and just put like a circle for what I felt that I did well that day, what I thought I could do better. I was really putting in development effort. I know that I can get better here. I know that I didn't do good at it, or what happened that made it good and better, and desirable and successful enough that made me feel like, yeah, I'm getting it. All of that stuff builds up over time. So being aware of where you are and then looking at what you can do about it. It's good to take note of what you were good at, and it's good to take note of what you didn't do so well. And look to the why. Build on those skill sets. First the awareness, then look for the skill sets necessary to start growing. Then you ask yourself questions, right? So the second part of this is, you've got it on paper now. You know what areas you need to work on. Now it's, what do you know about putting effort into that? What do you know about learning right there? How do you get better at that thing, whatever it is? If it's client escalation issues and dealing with client conflict, well, how do you get better at that? These are the things that we want to start looking at growing. That's at second level. You're putting effort into understanding it. And the third is to put that into action. I know this. I don't know that. Get to work. It's an interesting thing what happens with action. Life changes. you get out of the hypothetical, which is in your head. You're trying to project it and to analyze and then come up with whatever plan that you need to come up with to find success. And you're just in your head. You're experiencing, if you take no action, what is referred to as paralysis by analysis. You're sitting around and you're just thinking your way through things without actually putting any effort into finding out if your thoughts truly are going to work. If those thoughts are truly going to get you to be successful, you got to put action into it. Because you're going to learn a lot. You're going to do things like with me eating humble pie. You're going to learn where you're actually short. And then let the lessons happen. The lessons happen when you don't quite catch that boomerang just right. So it's coming back around, baby. You throw it out there with all that might and all that effort, and you're like, damn it, if this isn't going to be a badass situation, I know this and that, and I'm good at it, man, I'm going to really kill it. So confident. So you just got all of that energy that's just really demonstrating confidence. And then you throw that son of a bitch out there. You throw that boomerang out with that, this is going to happen, this is going to work, this is, you got that. You give all that effort and excitement about getting that thing out there, and you really give it a good throw, right? Really put some effort into it. Then your skills remind you of what you need to work on. And most of the time, if you really just put action into it, you're going to be, you might not fully catch the boomerang, but it doesn't quite hit you in the face, right? Maybe not. But you miss it. You don't quite grab it. It blows by you. Well, you know what you can do to get better. That when you throw it, maybe you change the hand, the way you hold it, so that you can get this thing to whip out there and then come whipping back. So that's part of this. That's the skill sets is a boomerang thing, right? You just practice. Action is how you practice. You can't sit around and just think about it all day. It's like riding a bicycle. Learn all you want about riding a bicycle. Until you put effort into it, you don't know shit about riding a bike. You can write a full-on page in physics about riding a bike, but until you've actually done it, you don't know shit. You know hypothetically how things work. You don't know how practically it works. So it works perfect with the bike analogy. So you've got to put action into it, and that action is going to teach you so much. It's going to teach you the areas that you didn't quite understand. It's going to open up different, veils. We're going to open up what's behind the curtain for things that you thought were a certain way, and it turns out it's not. No, it's going to let you know that you have a specific ability to function where you can actually be successful, and you'll have the areas where you know you can't, but yet it becomes more and more obvious what you need to put your effort into. Then you can get into the next step, right? So you've got these three things to help build your constitution, which is your confidence and your actual functional confidence and your ability to do something and stay with it. Then you've got, what do you do with that information? So I'm a huge advocate for this. Okay? You can so when it comes to developing your skill sets, you can buy a book. And there's books about everything. You can buy a book, or you can go to the library and rent one or whatever. Friend has it, borrow, whatever. Make sure you borrow with permission, otherwise that's stealing. So you've got opportunities. You buy a book, or you get a book, acquire one somehow, that has to do with the subject you want to develop yourself in, and you read. Do not neglect reading. It's incredibly helpful. It's better than just listening to audiobooks. It engages your brain differently. And if you read plus write, your points that really stand out, which, by the way, what I usually do with the points that really stand out are the ones that open up my mind a little bit more to make me go, oh shit, that's a great point, or I didn't think of it that way. That's typically what I'll write out. I'll write the whole passage out, or the paragraph, or I've even written out the entire page for things that I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. Oh, that's good. So put that effort into it, right? So don't neglect reading and then writing. it does affect your brain differently. It engages you differently. So, then there's, you could, so the first one, you could just get a book and, read it and write things down. Second, you can sign up and you can go to college for some of this stuff, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you could also do vocational schools, things like that. But, learn trades, things like that too. You're going to pick up a lot of stuff in it. You don't just learn subject, you learn skill sets around that subject whenever you go and take those courses. They typically don't talk about the skill sets as much as they talk about just the subject you're going to learn. But, discipline, stuff like that comes through for the ones that really do take it serious enough to pass. So, but you can go to college, and you can go to, get educated by going to a formal school type. And that's effective. Problem is that some of the education is going to be outdated, just simply by the nature of how things evolve. And by the time you get it into school and approved into the curriculum, things have advanced around it. Sometimes, and it's the philosophy of the practice or discipline. Sometimes it's in the technology to, application, if there's devices that help support it, things like that. But you can go to school for it, and it's effective. But again, some things are outdated, and you also typically are learning from people that don't do; they just teach. But trade school, commonly you learn from people that also do; they don't just teach. But anyway, all right. So practical application of knowledge. You can't sit in an echo chamber of academia and expect your knowledge not to be challenged in the real world scenarios. Okay. So you can do that. You can get a mentor, which is direct, typically and almost always. And I would not bring on a mentor that doesn't have the real world experience for what I want to learn, because I don't want somebody else hypothetically working their way through with, unproven strategies. But you may feel better about it, and then you're going to help further them by practicing what they're giving you advice on that they haven't themselves taken yet. And then again, by the way, to make sure clarity and full responsibility here, people will give advice where they have not practiced directly because the scenarios have not shown up. They've shown up for you, but they've been in the environment so much and so often that they fully understand how they would truly behave, because that's just what they would genuinely do, because they're constantly in the environment, and when that type of scenario shows up, they'll do it, because that's just how the logic and the experience flows. So there is that. And then there is the I have done this before, this is this, and this is how it was successful. And it reduces the hypothetical significantly. Because some of those instances, they may be exaggerated a little bit, whatever. I don't want to get too far into the minutiae of it about the way people be about giving advice and then all of that too, because there's so much detail in it. Because I'll do some videos on advice itself pretty soon. Why to be careful with and when to offer it, things like that, because it's how to be responsible for when giving advice, and how to responsibly listen to the person that needs advice, and to listen to yourself responsibly. But anyway, so that's you can get a mentor, and the mentor works a lot like school, with the exception that they've got the actual real world experience, when you assign, you hire, you bring on a mentor. And I highly suggest you pay your mentor, because you want to put some skin in the game. Bartering doesn't seem to hit the same way most of the time for nearly everyone. So nothing really aggravates a mentor more than to teach a lesson the person doesn't take, and they keep having to teach that person that lesson. That is incredibly aggravating for a mentor, and for a mentee. You're putting in the effort, why don't you learn it? A way to support and fortify the opportunity for growth is to pay for it. Give literal money. Pay that person for their time, for their effort. Honor them and pay them what they're worth to you. Especially based off what you have available. If you want to make more money, you really need to start understanding money. That's a maturity thing. It's finance maturity. What is it? Excuse me. All right. So, and then there is the one that I have typically traveled myself, and I do this often, and have done this often. Find a job that will challenge you in that particular area of skill sets. Like my issue is my example earlier when I was working for the chain of fitness centers. I had to eat humble pie because I was a very high level technician. I was a corrective exercise specialist and very educated in that world for preventative and preventative and corrective. But my sales ability was shit. I over knowledge bombed everybody in order to try to prove value, and occasionally I would get people to hire me, where I was priced the same as the majority of my competition. But they'd hire my competition, even though they were nowhere near as educated as I was. And I just could not seem to break through that veil running my own company. So I realized that, also my other issues that I had is recruiting, training and developing, and retaining employees. I really just had the thought that, if I demonstrated that I was that capable, they would want to come on as a mentee and be an employee. That's where I would go with it, because I smarted my way into dysfunction. It's very common. So I took this job working for that chain of fitness centers because I not only wanted to eat that humble pie, I realized I had to, but it was going to be my access. So from looking good to just take the fact I don't look good and make that into you are going to get better, and that's the stress. Stress is tuition for the future you're creating yourself into. So stress will do that, and that's it. Look at it as tuition, and man, you're going to start paying that stuff with just absolute. For me, I pay it with absolute joy. And stress, baby. Here you go. Here's your stress bucks. It ain't going to burn me alive. Stress bucks, baby. So, you get the job where the skills necessary that you're wanting to develop, those are part of that job, and they're the ones grading you on how well you're doing, because they're the ones that are paying you. And not only whether or not they pay you, it's whether or not you keep your job. So that's how I looked at it. And man, was it it was challenging in the beginning, because I had to stop smarting my way through everything. I had a really good friend of mine, RJ. He was my first effective mentor with this company. And Johnny was that. I mean, Johnny was amazing too, but they had reassigned me from my location to go work with RJ. And they put me with him for about a month. And he's great at developing people. RJ is incredibly good at it. And he did a fantastic job with me, and he kept making me just shut the hell up, because I was outsmarting, everybody in the world of fitness. And all it was doing was giving people enough information to run off and try to do it on their own. Because if I was giving them a playbook, and that's not how sales typically works. You'll just smart your way into a sale. You got to have the strategy to it, because most people will think they've got enough information, and then they will do with what they think is the right thing without having any practical application to it, and know how to deal with those challenges that come along, and how to stabilize themselves and support themselves so that they can actually make the progress they're looking to make. So I had to learn that. So that is a major way, because it goes from I am very immature in this area, the skill set, and then you force yourself into something that's actually able to develop you, and you really push your way through it. So I went from being a pretty poor salesman when I first got into this company to being a top employee, top sales guy. And my thing was, I also did not have a system of sales to teach. I do now, and that was born through that company. I do not, I don't like the traditional sales approach. I don't like to use guilt and shame to get people to buy something. I came up with a method, highly ethical, that I refer to as assisted buying. That would not have come about had I been so worried about looking good and being right that I would not have taken the job. That's the beautiful thing about do something. You don't necessarily know what you need to do to be successful all the time. But when you do something, you are giving yourself the opportunity to see from a different vantage point. So I was attached to being, obviously earning a living, but the other was, I was also attached to really developing and just letting it all go. By the time that I had left the position that I had been brought into, as far as I was assistant director, then I became the director, again, mind you, coming from, I was not very good at this. The skill sets necessary to be successful with this, I wasn't that. No, I was challenged by it. I got to be one of, the top producer in the company in 2 different categories, and I was often number one and one, if not them both. And definitely top 5 for pretty much almost the entire time I was involved. Once I got into the top 5, I pretty much stayed there most of the time. It was incredible. My pay, I was making more than senior management in the company, and I was at club level management, which means there was upper, then there was senior, and I was making more money than even they were on average. Some of the executive staff as well, because of their pay model. And I was concerned. My sales ability was short, in my opinion. And then by the time I had really matured in the position, which really took, I want to say it was about a year, and then I was definitely matured in the position to be very successful with it. That once I got to that point, then those skills are mine. So you could take a job where and you're likely going to have to come in more entry level, where you don't quite have the skill set to be successful in it. You take a job in it and you let that report card be your paycheck, and then your feedback from your boss. You'll develop there too. So that's my preference when it comes to it, because you get paid to learn, you get paid to develop. But some of us really can't take the job because we have a pretty good one as it is. So then you can take one of the other methods. You can go through, you can go through all of the necessary steps there. You can figure out the other ones that are going to work for you. But I would definitely make sure you're learning. All right. That's it for today. So the conversation is about how to set yourself up to be successful. It's how do you increase your constitution within yourself, so your confidence about who you are and your ability to stay consistent. Let's put this stuff into action. Okay, you got to start applying it. Don't beat yourself up if tomorrow your idea of what success is not met. 1% on a daily basis is the best way to go about it. So spend the time, do the 1% on a daily basis. At the end of the year, you're going to be absolutely amazed with who you're becoming. 1% daily. That's it. It adds up so incredibly well. And it's typically not too much at one time. Actually, it's not too much at one time. You just have to make sure you're really giving yourself 1% at minimum. All right. That's it for today. Share this video with the person in your life you want to break the ice with. Let's also like the video. It'll help me with the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel. This is definitely going to help get more of this message out. If you like what you're hearing and you're getting something out of it, put a comment in the comment section. So if you'd like to hear me talk a little bit more about any specific subject also, feel free to throw that in the comment section. I'll reach out. We'll start doing some things here pretty soon with some fundamentals about exactly how do you get yourself going in each one of the 8 areas in a basic introduction level. So I'll get some of that stuff put together soon. All right. Until next time, I am your host, Chad Everett Broshears, or Sir Chad Everett Broshears to some, if you know, you know. And, you know, we got a world that's calling to us. It really needs us, but you got to work on yourself first. Otherwise, you know, you'll end up doing the old cliche. Path to hell is paved with good intentions. And right now, our society is pushing us into a super highway to get there. So we got to interrupt that stuff. All right. Till next time, let's get to it. See ya.